Thank you for stopping by at the Movie Marquee. Our podcast reviews well-known movies and contains spoilers. The podcast may contain mature subject matter and mature language. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Quiet on set. Places, everybody. And action.
Welcome, everyone, to the Movie Marquee. Today's showing is the 2003 romantic comedy, Love Actually. With me, as always, is Ken.
Get a grip. People hate sissies. No one's ever going to shag you if you're going to cry all the time.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. And Ted.
Hiya, kids. Here's an important message from your Uncle Bill. Don't buy drugs. Become a pop star, and they give them to you for free.
And I'm Eric. There was more than one lobster present at the birth of Jesus. I know, it sounds like a bad Monty Python skit there, right?
Wouldn't lobster be considered shellfish? And if it's considered shellfish,
yes,
they're Jewish, aren't they? So
yes.
They don't eat
no,
that, right?
They don't.
No
so
no lobsters.
No lobster.
Not a lot of lobsters in Israel, but hey, you know.
No lobsters were harmed during the filming of the Nativity.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're looking at Love Actually today. Ted, tell us some of the particulars of this movie.
Love Actually was directed by Richard Curtis with a screenplay by Richard Curtis, and it has a running time of 136 minutes. It had a release date in the U.S. of November 14th, 2003. In the United Kingdom, it was released on November 21st, 2003. It had a budget of $40 to $45 million and took in a box office gross of $246.8 million. So very successful. Love Actually stars Alan Rickman as Harry, Emma Thompson as Karen, Hugh Grant as David, the Prime Minister, Keira Knightley as Juliet, Colin Firth as Jamie, Luisa Moniz as Aurelia, Liam Neeson as Daniel, Thomas Sangster as Sam, Bill Nighy as Billy Mack, Gregor Fisher as Joe, Martine McCutcheon as Natalie, Chiwetel Ejiofor as Peter, Andrew Lincoln as Mark, Laura Linney as Sarah, and Rodrigo Santoro as Carl. It also has Chris Marshall as Colin, Abdul Salis as Tony, and Heike Makash as Mia. And then there's a bunch of, I guess they're considered cameos, where you have Billy Bob Thornton as the U.S. President, Rowan Atkinson as Rufus, Claudia Schiffer as Carol, Nina Sosanya as Annie, Ivana Milechevich as Stacy, January Jones as Jeannie, Elisha Cuthbert as Carol Ann, Shannon Elizabeth as Harriet, and Denise Richards as Carla.
What an incredible cast.
Amazing cast.
It is, without a doubt. I mean, anyone who's anyone in 2003 is in this movie, American and English.
Some of these people that's going to be really early in their career. Andrew Lincoln, of course, he's known best for the Walking Dead series. Love Actually was a few years before that. And then Laura Linney, who is a great actress, she would go on to do quite many things, but her most recent success is with the Netflix show Ozark, which she's brilliant in. And of course, this is a little bit out of typecast for Mr. Liam Neeson. I guess there wasn't anybody to take hostage in this movie that he had to go and hunt down.
No one to find and kill, right? What did the critics think of this one?
On Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is a 64%, and then it has an audience score of 72%. And as the 64% says, there was quite a few more positives than negatives. I was able to find a few negatives from some of our heavy hitters. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone, he said, as a director, Curtis doesn't seem to rein in his writer. He gave it a 2 out of 4. Mark Caro from the Chicago Tribune, I guess Michael Phillips was out this week, said individually the tales wouldn't stand up as short stories. Together, they make for sporadically amusing, ultimately wearying viewing. Score of 2 out of 4. A.O. Scott from the New York Times said, a patchwork of contrived naughtiness and forced pathos. And I had to include that for Eric because he likes his $2 words.
That's a great name, Forced Pathos. It's like a
I know,
rock
right?
band.
Gene Seymour of Newsday said, Love Actually is to the romantic comedy genre what a Sherman tank is to sport utility vehicles. And he gave it 2.5 out of 4. Can you explain exactly what he's meaning by that?
Not a clue. That makes absolutely no sense.
Maybe it's cool that it's there, but it really doesn't belong.
or it runs over on a sport utility. I couldn't understand. That's why I included it, because I was hoping maybe one of you two would be able to explain to me
Hey,
how.
still 2.5, right? 2.5 out of 4.
Yeah. And then on our positive critic side, we have Scott Tobias of the AV Club. He said, Love Actually provides enough happy endings to make the audience forget that romance and Christmas miracles don't always work out. Roger Moore from the Orlando Sentinel said, it's too busy with too many stories to tell, but there's so much heart and silly fun and genuine sentiment here, delivered by an A-list of Brit and American talent, that it's hard to fault. Gave it a
I
score.
thought Roger Moore wasn't in this movie.
Why wasn't Roger Moore in this movie? That's a good point.
Yeah, he gave it a score out of 3 out of 5.
Or a Sean Connery, right?
No Bonds
Right?
were allowed to be in this movie.
No Bonds,
Right, yeah, no Bonds. And then Moira McDonald from the Seattle Times said, it's no hardship whatsoever to sit through Love Actually. But if Curtis could have sharpened his focus and trusted his actors a bit more, Love Actually could have been splendid. She gave it 2.5 out of 4. And then, of course, Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times. The movie's only flaw is also a virtue. It's jammed with characters, stories, warmth, and laughs, until at times Curtis seems to be working from a checklist of obligatory movie love situations and doesn't want to leave anything out. At 129 minutes, it feels a little like a gourmet meal that turns into a hot dog eating contest. I once had ballpoints printed up with the message, no good movie is too long, no bad movie is short enough. Love Actually is too long, but don't let that stop you.
It almost didn't sound like a good review, but I guess it
No,
was.
it didn't, actually.
It ended up being a 4-star review.
Hey.
He ended up liking it. Like I've said before, I love how he uses the turns of phrase. I love how he used the hot dog. It turned into a hot dog eating contest. So
I like the phrase,
cool.
but it just confused me because I thought for a second he was going to give it like a 2.5 stars himself.
Yeah, it sounded like it was going downhill.
If you read the full review, he goes through and he highlights the stories that he likes from the movie, and he likes more of the stories than he doesn't. I think that's where he ended up.
For 4 stars, I thought he would like every single one of them.
All right, Ken, you're up. The plot. Let's hear it.
Oh, yeah, because there's like 9 plots in this movie, or at least that's all I'm giving you all. There's probably more than 9, but we only have so much time.
And Ken's going to do the rest of the podcast by himself because he has the plot of this movie.
Good. Have fun. I'll be back in an hour.
Smoke them if you got them. First storyline, Billy Mack and Joe. So, with longtime matcher Joe, legend Billy Mack records a Christmas version of the Troggs' Love Is All Around, titling it Christmas Is All Around. Although believing the record is terrible, Mack promotes the release in its hopes that it'll become a Christmas #1 single, which it does. And then he skips out on Elton John's party and goes celebrates with his manager, getting drunk and watching porn. That's the first story there. All right, you got Juliet, Peter, and Mark. Juliet marries Peter, and Mark is videotaping the wedding, but Mark is obsessed with Juliet. When he videotapes the wedding, he only videotapes her, which she finds out later because the videotape of her wedding was messed up. So she had to go get a copy, and of course, had to go to his place. He denies even having it, and of course, she finds it, and she watches it.
Her copy was rubbish.
And he's embarrassed, walks away, but later decides to come back and romance her a little bit with cue cards. And then he walks away, she runs out to him, gives him a kiss, she runs back in, and he says, enough is enough. And that was the end of that. All right, we got Jamie and Arella. So Jamie is a writer. Girlfriend cheats on him with his brother. He then decides to write a book in France. While in France, he meets Aurelia. She is the housekeeper. She doesn't speak English, and he doesn't speak her language, which is Portuguese. It turns out they both are madly in love with each other, but can't express it in words since they don't speak each other's language. They separate. He goes back home, but can't live without her. So around Christmas, he goes and finds her and proposes his love to her and asks to marry her in her own language. She says yes. Harry, Karen, and Mia. Harry is a managing director of a design agency. Mia is his secretary. And of course, he's married to Karen, who's a stay-at-home mother with 2 children. While Christmas shopping, Harry calls Mia asking her what she wants for Christmas and is almost caught by his wife purchasing an expensive necklace in the shape of a love heart. But later on, Karen finds the necklace in Harry's coat. Assuming that it's hers, she can't wait to open the present when it's time to open presents. When she does open her present, she finds a Joni Mitchell CD instead. Heartbroken, she lets Harry know that she thought the necklace was for her after the kids' school play. Basically, we think that they got back together. David Natalie. David, who is actually Karen's brother, is also the recently elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Natalie is a new junior member of the household staff at 10 Downing Street. During a meeting with the U.S. president, they came across Natalie, and the president makes inappropriate comments to David about her. And later, David walks in on Natalie, serving tea and biscuit to the president, and it appears that something untoward is happening. Natalie seems embarrassed. David is frustrated and takes it out on the president during a meeting in front of the press. He excuses Natalie, but then regrets his decision to excuse her, and then seeks her out at her parents' house. He finally finds her there, and they go to the school play, where they kiss in front of the whole audience. And then we have Daniel and Sam. Daniel was one of Karen's close friends, mourns the recent death of his wife. Sam is his stepson, who is grieving for his mother, but has fallen for a classmate named Joanna, who is a great singer. He doesn't know how to get her attention, so he decides to become a drummer. He learns how to drum in 3 weeks. He finds out that after the concert that she has to leave for America. Well, Sam decides that he has to find a way to get her attention. So him and his stepdad rush to the airport, and by avoiding security, he's able to see Joanna. As he's walking back to see his stepdad, Joanna comes back and gives him a kiss on the cheek. And of course, Sam knows that she's the one. Then we have Sarah, Carl, and Michael. Sarah first appears at Julia and Peter's wedding, sitting next to her friend Jamie, an American working at Harry's graphic design company. She has been in love with the creative director, Carl, for years. Prompted by Harry, they finally connected at a Christmas party, and he drives her home. Michael, her mentally ill brother, phones her from his mental care facility, causing their evening to be aborted. On Christmas Eve, they both are working late, but Carl just wishes her a Merry Christmas and leaves. Sarah calls and goes to see Michael, getting him a Christmas scarf. We have Colin, Tony, and the American Girls. So Colin is this dimwit who thinks that going to America is going to get him laid. He ends up booking a flight to the Americas, and what place does he choose? Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He heads to the nearest bar. Not only does he find one hot girl, but he finds 3 hot girls, who happens to have a 4th hot girl roommate. They take it back to their place, and they have sex. And then he goes back to England with 2 different girls, and he introduces one to his best friend. That happens all the time. John and Judy. John and Judy are professional body doubles for films. They meet during a sex scene for a film in which Tony is the production assistant.
Professional body doubles, huh? Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying what kind of movie it is yet. But I don't think it's a porn. I don't think this movie that they are doing is a porn because the set is too nice. It's a really, really nice set. But I just don't understand the action that is required to be doubles. Hey.
Holy crap.
There's a lot of stupid storylines here.
You're doing great with the plot, man. This is
Thank you.
Right on.
Thank you.
Right on.
Suck it, Ted. They carefully pursue a relationship, attending the Christmas pageant, and then people ask them, how did you guys meet together? We met by being naked on a film set. And that is basically all the stories.
Woohoo! Cool. All right.
Cool.
Well, let's
Have
roll
patience,
into
Ted.
Patience is a virtue with this movie.
Sometimes it's a virgin, but not in this movie.
Not in this movie. No. All right. First time you saw it. Ted, we know this is it, right?
Yep, this is the first time this past week.
How many times you watch it?
I watched it 3 times, as I do
must
with
be
all
obsessed.
the movies.
Okay. All right.
It took 3 times trying to unweave all of these stories out of each other. I still don't know if I have a full handle on who's related to who. And
You'll do great. Ken, we know you saw it on cable.
Yeah, I saw it on cable as soon as it came out on cable. And
I have no idea when I first saw this movie. Probably could have been. I have no recollection when I first saw it, but I own a copy of it. That's it, man. I don't know when I first saw it. That was quick and succinct and to the point. Now let's get down to it. Now we're going to have some fun. We're going to have a lot of fun now, boys. A lot of fun. Let's dissect this bad boy. We've got some serious plot twists here, some storylines that we're going to analyze, and we're going to kind of do it one storyline at a time. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to ask ourselves whether or not we feel we should keep it or we should dump it. Great.
Sounds good.
Everyone ready to play the game? Let's do it. First one, Billy Mack.
Come on down.
The musician and his fat manager. We'll start off. We'll go Ted. We'll go Ken. We'll go me. Let's roll. Ted.
I think that Bill Nye's character, Billy Mack, is the funniest character in the whole movie. He's probably one of the most well-written for characters, too. I love his brutal honesty. I think that the situations that he finds him, because you can tell that he doesn't care anymore. He's given it up.
He's done.
He is out there for one reason. I like everything that he does. I like the fact that he goes on to the talk show and he writes above the boy band that they have small pricks.
Yes, right.
And I love the fact that he goes on to the other talk show and he tells the guy that if he wins, he's going to come on and perform naked.
Right.
And then he does, because he ends up winning. I love his don't care attitude. And that might be what endears him to people, this frank honestness, because he is right. The song is rubbish.
The song is crap.
But I can't get it out of my mind either.
Oh, yeah.
It's the interviews that he does. I think that's what gets it to be his song to be number one, because he's just out there being honest. And nobody's ever honest. You hear the one DJ go, nobody's ever honest with us.
Thank you for being honest, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's embarrassed by it, though. The DJ, he's just like, can't believe everything he's saying, too.
Right. I love his manager, too.
Yeah.
Because every time he says something that's more outlandish than the last thing
the
he
manager's
said.
just like putting his hands down and banging his head against the wall.
I truly believe that they're really good friends. That this guy has been with Billy Mack through everything. Billy Mack's honest and says that he's been through heroin addiction. So you get the feeling that this guy has been by his side the whole time.
He's a rock and roll lifestyle, man. He's the real gem. Kind of like a Mick Jagger kind of thing. I don't know if Mick was doing heroin, but yeah, it's kind of got that Mick Jagger feel to it. Possibly. Who knows, right?
Isn't it weird, though? The manager has a lot of his memorabilia in his house. I mean, it's almost
if you look at
obsession.
Like Doc, I can't think of his name. His first name is Doc. He's the manager for Kiss. He has a whole buttload of Kiss stuff in his house, so it's not that big of a stretch. You get the feeling that this guy has stuck by Billy Mack's side through the hard times and everything. And when it comes time for Billy Mack to actually be real and not be outlandish, that's what he says to him. And you really believe that. They have a believable, really heartfelt relationship. It might be the strongest relationship in the entire movie, I think. I believe him. And that's more than I can say for some of the other ones.
All right, Ken, you're up.
Well, I don't know if I believe they have the strongest relationship, but it is fun. I really do think that Billy Mack is doing all this on purpose. I think he knows the game and he knows how to promote himself. Even at the end when he wins and they play that song, he goes, "Not this bloody song again," and everybody laughs. I think he knows how to market himself. All this is a marketing strategy on him to bring himself back on top. I think that's the only reason why he's purely honest here, because he's just in it to sell record and to get back to where he once was. He must have been a big star because the DJ talks about him as how the mighty have fallen. So he must have been
while he's at the station waiting to be interviewed. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Oh, we have him up next. Oh, yeah.
I think he knows that this is his last shot to be relative again, and I think he understands that. He does it without his manager knowing, because in his mind, he has to do this. And I think he does realize all the way through that he appreciates his manager for sticking with him. He's the only one probably who has. I agree with Ted. It's one of my favorite characters. I don't know if I would say their relationship is one of my favorites, but I would say Billy Mack itself is fun. It takes us mind off of all these other relationships when he shows on and we have a good laugh, and then we have to go back to the silly love stories.
For me, it's my favorite character group, hands down. I love the relationship between these two as friends. I love just the outlandishness of British humor. It's vulgar, but it's not vulgar. Like when he has the interview with the guy on the TV show, and he's like, "Oh, you want a sneak peek, old man?" And he just like walks up to him and starts zipping his pants down. I mean, it's got that subtle British humor, that Monty Python or Benny Hill kind of humor that I love. The relationship between these two, it's incredible. The chemistry between them is incredible. The attitude of Bill Nye's character is he just doesn't care. And Ken makes a good point. I think he is trying to get on top. I think he likes being in the limelight again. I mean, obviously, he's re-recording that song for a reason. I mean, there must be some money in it for him. The video is kind of funny, too. It's kind of got the Robert Palmer girls in the background. It's funny. And I love the reactions from the manager every time he just does something off the cuff. It's just priceless.
Nothing says Christmas like a girl licking her lips on the video.
Of course.
Love is all around.
And it's funny, Eric, that you had brought up Mick Jagger, because the producers of the movie wanted to talk to both Jagger and Bowie about this movie to be the Billy Mack character.
Mhm.
But the director was hesitant to do so because he was afraid that they would try to mess with the actual song, and they were sold on the song. So that's why they didn't approach any of the real living legends to play the Billy Mack character. But that's pretty funny. Simply irresistible music video. Also, too, like when he's first recording the song and he can't
The opening
change
is
the
it's
lyric.
a great opening, yes. And he just does that, oh, bloody, just drops a whole bunch of those British swears that we all love.
It's
That's
like, this is
hilarious.
crap. And he's like, yeah, this is pure gold crap.
Gold
Pure-
crap, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, keep it or drop it. Ted.
Keep it.
Excellent.
Keep
Good.
it, keep it.
And I am a keep it kind of guy as well on this one. All right, moving on. Woohoo! All right, we're 1 for 1. Jamie and Aurelia. Jamie and Aurelia, our favorite Portuguese. What is she? I guess housekeeper.
Housekeeper.
Yeah. Ted.
This is one of those stories that I do like the story that they tell. This is one that needed more oxygen for this to be as fleshed out as it should have been, because the payoff of her saying yes to his proposal doesn't equal the time that they've spent together. And this is a story I'm pretty sure has probably been done, either romantic comedy or romantic love story, where the guy can't speak the language, but they overcome it. It needs more. As far as the characters go, I feel legitimately bad for Colin. He seems like a very good guy.
You mean Jamie?
Jamie, yeah.
Colin, I believe
And
you don't like.
Colin
But we'll get on to
yeah.
that one.
Well, Colin's
Jamie.
the actor.
Colin Firth, sure.
Who I immediately, once he's on screen, I like him because I like him as an actor. He's been done dirty by his own brother. And I wish when he does come home for Christmas Eve and his brother's standing there in the doorway with the rest of the family, and there was no acknowledgement about that, I wish that would have been one of the reasons why he dropped the presents and just dropped them off and then left. And then realized that he was going to go ask her to marry him. But
And
there's
the kids
no
are like,
acknowledgement.
we hate Jamie. We hate
Yeah.
What is
Jamie.
up with that,
And,
by the way?
I don't
Why
know.
was that even there? I mean, it's...
Yeah, I don't care for that at all. If this was a real life situation, he would have had something to say to his brother being
Would
there
have decked him or
for
something.
Christmas. Yeah, exactly.
Or at least not there, at least maybe right after he catches him.
Yeah,
I mean, they go
that's what I
straight
mean.
from there to his villa, I guess, in France, and it's like, what's that all about? But I think if he would have just told his family, hey, I've fallen in love again, I need to go.
Yeah.
It's something simple as that.
It's a tough transition there. And this is where this movie, it really gets me, because I like the story, but I don't like how it's done. And that's what makes it frustrating. I like the two characters, and I like Aurelia's character. I think that she plays really well. One of the most understated parts of this whole interaction, he meets her dad, and they take him to the restaurant where she's working. I think that's a hilarious sequence, because then her sister's like, my dad's going to sell my sister to this Englishman, and then one of the little kids says, he's going to kill her. And he's like,
And
oh,
the
that's
whole
cool.
town follows them in.
And I like the fact that when they do the translations, they actually translate exactly what he's saying, and it's all bungled up.
Broken, yeah.
I think that's funny. That's something that could be missed.
It's done even better when they're in that lake or pond, and she's saying certain things like, I hope this is a great work of art. And he's like, this is rubbish, and I hope there's no eels in here. And she's like, don't disturb the eels. I think it's cute wordplay back and forth. And then when we get to the end there, I like the fact that he goes to see the father, and he goes, I'm here to marry your daughter. And it's the other daughter that he calls for, thinking, wait, I don't even know him, and you're going to just give him to me? I'm like, no, I was going to ask him for money. So that's why he said he was going to sell her to an Englishman.
Ultimately, these are characters I wish they had their own movie. Or if they didn't have their own movie, they were teamed up with one of the other movies. Because Colin Firth's character, he is best friends with another set of characters that we're going to talk about. Maybe if those things are happening all around together and that's one movie, I think it would work. I actually would like to spend more time with these characters. And I think that's part of the problem that I have with this storyline.
I think that's lazy at the end, how they introduce the other characters together. Juliet, Peter, and Mark are all his friends, but they show them right at the end at the airport. I agree with you, though. This needs more room to grow, more oxygen. It could be a good story. It's just completely rushed. They're together for a few weeks, and I understand you can fall in love with somebody in a short period of time, but they don't know what each other is saying to each other. It almost looks like he's not even interested in her until he sees her get half naked just to jump in the pond.
Oh no, I think
does
he's
help.
attracted. I think he's attracted to her immediately.
When do you see that?
Just the way he interacts and he's stumbling around his words. He's trying to
stumbling
figure out
around his words because he doesn't know the language.
Well, yeah,
So-
that's partially true, but he seems a little overeager to make the connection. I think he knows that he likes her.
No, I just think he's a nice guy. I think he's a nice guy, and he pays for being a nice guy in the previous relationship. We see how he was treating his girlfriend before he left and his brother decided to screw around with him.
Do you think the girlfriend was faking being sick?
Yes.
You know what? She had a red nose, though. You see how, I mean,
I did.
She could just sit there and start blowing her nose for faking it.
She probably was, because I'm sure they had plans for him to show up. Here's the other thing is, he just had his heart broken again.
Right.
Does he open up within a week to fall in love with another girl right away? And
that's where time would have done so much more for this story.
For all the stories, basically.
This one in particular,
yes,
it needed more time because you'd have to think that he's legitimately devastated by what his brother did to him. That's a betrayal, like, holy crap, that's a betrayal.
Yeah. Because
huge,
if you're truly in love with that girl who betrayed you, and then you fall in love a week or two later, that takes away from what happened to you before. It means that you really weren't in love with her, and so the hurt really shouldn't have been there.
The time factor discounts a lot of the heavy stuff that they deal with.
Okay.
What do you think, Eric?
Well, you know what? I agree with both you guys. I like the characters. I think we could have used a lot more backstory on it. I think it could have played out a lot better, but I still think it played out well, but there was a lot of room to improve. All right, keep it or dump it. Ted.
Dump it only if I can have a movie with just the two of them.
How about as is? As is in this movie. Dump it.
Then I gotta dump it.
Ken?
I'm borderline too with this one. If I had a choice, I would say keep it and expand it. But
as of right in the movie itself, it plays out.
As it plays out right now, dump it.
All right. I'm going to keep it. Even with the holes, even with the questions and the wondering and stuff, I'm still keep it. All right. Moving on to Daniel and Sam. Ken, let's start off with you with Dan and Sam.
This one's a very hard one for me because first of all, I don't think Sam is a likable kid for the most part. Until the end when he gets to his girlfriend and she comes back and gives him a kiss. And then he turns around and points to one.
You don't think he's a likable kid?
I don't think he's a likable kid.
You're the same guy who loved the little kid from Jerry Maguire back from our first episode. Holy smokes.
This kid is the stereotypical British child.
He's 11 years old, but as tall as the kid from Jerry Maguire. Anyway,
there's no fluoride in the water, Ken.
You're going to rip on the kid because he's small? Holy crap.
No, this is another story that could have been on its own. We're dropped right into a situation where his mother just died. So we don't know his relationship with his mother. We want to see grieving for his mother, but he even says, I know I should be grieving, but I'm in love. Sorry, you're an 11-year-old kid. You should be devastated by your mom's death. And I have a little bit of a problem with the focus of him being on a girl at school and not on his mother who had just recently passed. I also have
Maybe it's a coping mechanism.
Maybe it is a coping mechanism. I mean, even at the end, if he cries or something like at the end, like a release or something.
Did the kid cry at the funeral?
No, he had a kind of a blank stare, so I can let that go a little bit.
Yeah, a little shock.
A little bit of shock. And then on top of that, his dad, in about 5 weeks, he's already hitting on, granted, she is Claudia Schiffer, but it's not actually Claudia Schiffer. It's
Claudia Schiffer.
Well, it is, but she's playing somebody else.
Yeah.
But he's already hitting on her. His wife is supposed to be the love of his life. Can you actually hit on another woman within 5 weeks of her death?
But even he said it, you can have more than one love in your life.
You can have more than one love in your life, but I don't think within 5 weeks of it. So it bothered me that he was already hitting on this mom 5 weeks after his wife's death. I don't know. I feel like they didn't treat the wife's death extremely serious. I mean, some of it was because the wife didn't want it to be treated seriously, and that's why they played the Bay City Rollers. And actually, I like that song. That song's kind of a cool song, and I didn't hear it
We'll play it at
before.
your funeral, Ken.
You could do whatever you want at my funeral. I don't care. And he learns how to play the drums really well within 3 weeks. First of all, don't you have to audition to play the drums to get onto the band? How did he audition? Like within like days, he learned how to play the drums.
Maybe no one else wanted to play the drums in the school. Who knows?
But he would figure they would ask him if he knew how to play it. So I think would have done better with a little bit more time. We don't know what the relationship between Daniel and Karen is. They're friends, but how are they friends? And so we really don't know that connection.
It is a little bit fuzzy. What I was able to make up kind of in my own head, it seemed like she was friends with his wife because their kids go to the same school.
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
They were couples that hung out and were friendly with each other.
This has got to be your best friend, though, for her to come over and eat breakfast cereal out of the box. And her saying, don't be a sissy, you're not going to get laid with that type of attitude. I thought that was kind of weird considering his wife just died a week ago and you're already talking about you're not going to get laid for being a sissy. It just seemed really weird in how they treated this death. If this was something that was 6 months down the road, I can accept a little bit more, but they're cramming it in within weeks. And this is the problem with this movie, I think, in parts, is time. And we just talked about it in the other storyline. Time doesn't work well in some of these plots. And
this movie could easily be 5-6 hours long if you really played out each one of these
Thank God it's
storylines.
Yeah.
It could be separate movies, actually.
Oh, yeah, because like Ken said, this is a movie in of itself as well. A guy dealing with, not only did he lose his partner, but now he has a child that's technically not his, and we don't know if he's adopted him or not.
I'm sure he has.
Not.
We don't know how long they were married. Were they married 6 months, a year? I mean, how long has he been the stepdad? We don't know any of this.
I do get that it's touching and it is heartfelt when Sam finally refers to him as dad.
Yeah, he calls him by the first name throughout the movie until the end, and he calls him dad at the end, which is cool.
I like their interactions. I think they're funny. I will give you this, Ken. It is odd here that time is played, in a lot of these scenarios, time is played fast and loose. And there's no real respect for time. And this is a movie, a romantic, like love story movie or romantic comedy where a guy has a stepson, and that's been done before as well. A lot of these tropes that he hits on have been done. They've just never been all crammed into one movie.
If you're really watching this movie from start to finish, you almost have to suspend reality. You can't look at this movie and say, I wonder what the backstory is on these people. You almost have to say, hey, there's no backstory. We're just looking at time right now. Wife died. Great. What's going on right now in your life? Each one of these breaks down into what's going on in your life right now.
No, I do not agree with you on that.
Yes.
When you are talking about something as serious as love, and you're talking about that in the movie as this is like the most important thing there is, you need to have substance.
You do, but you can't. You can't have it in this movie.
You can't have not the way you the way you did it. Well, that's because of the way they did it.
There's no time.
That's why you needed to drop some stories. If you went with 4 strong stories and went back and forth and related all the 4 stories together and maybe had Rowan Atkinson's character, which we'll talk about later, as kind of the connecting dot to all 4 of the stories, then I think you have a better movie. And then I think I can probably get behind this relationship. But because the time is fast-forwarding everything, it makes me think, why am I caring? Why do I care if he falls in love or gets the girl? I need to be invested to care what happens to these characters at the end.
We can agree to disagree on that one. I agree.
As long as I'm right.
Okay. I agree. This movie would probably be much better with 4 or 5, probably 4 strong stories that we could really move on. We have to kind of spread them out, and they're very thin and put together. And I agree. I agree with you there. Let's see. Are we going to keep it or are we going to dump it? Ken?
Dump it.
Ted?
It's so hard, but I think that this is one that you could probably do without, because I think here again, it could be its own movie. It's not given the air to breathe. I would have to go with drop it.
I like the relationship between them. I'm going to keep it. So let's move on here. Let's start with Harry, Karen, and Mia. I'll start this one off. Incredible actors and actresses here in a kind of a stale marriage. He's got the wandering eye for the secretary. She is a hottie. I think his intentions are not to cheat on his wife, but he obviously made some really, really bad decisions. And in this case, you're absolutely right. Backstory would help, where there's something prior in the marriage that caused him to have the wandering eye. You know what? It's kind of funny. When you think of British movies and British comedies, the relationships between older married couples are always very stale. It just seems like they're very staunch and rigid and stale. Kind of like A Fish Called Wanda. John Cleese and his wife, just very kind of staunch and stuffy and day by day kind of thing in the bedroom. I think there was a lot that could have been done with this. There wasn't. Could have really expanded on this one a little bit more. How about you, Ken?
I disagree with you on that. I actually think they did, on all the stories, they did well on this one. And I think that's because of the acting of Alan Rickman and Emma Thompson. It's because of the emotions that are able to display. When Alan Rickman, when he finds out that she knows that he cheated on her and he knows that he screwed up, and then his look on his face when she's hugging the kids, that says it all.
Can we honestly say cheating? Are we talking emotional cheating? Because there was no physical.
I think there was physical because they do have a shot of her on the bed putting on the necklace, and it looks like two people have been in that bed, not just her. Because both pillows on both sides have kind of indentations on them. So I do think he physically cheated on her. Plus, if all he did was give her the necklace, I think they could have got past that. But once you have given yourself up sexually to somebody, that's much harder to get over than giving a gift to somebody that you work with. She warns him too earlier in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
She tells him to be careful. We see that their marriage is a little bit on the stale. They care for each other. They do love each other, but it's a different kind of love. There's not that physical love, but it's that
25, 30 years in, kind of.
Right. And I think we don't need a huge backstory on that because we see that in their faces, in their acting. And that's why I think this one doesn't need as much of a backstory. Plus, I think all the time that they spend on all these stories, this might have gotten the most screen time.
How about a future story? Did the marriage break up after that?
No, I think they stayed
walking away with the kids. You think so?
Well, He comes back from a trip, and she says it's good to have you back.
But it was very cold. Yeah.
They still have to, though, mend the fences. It's a month later. Or is it a month or 3 months later? It's going to take a lot of time to repair this.
All right, Ted.
I agree with both of you in a way. I think, Eric, what you said at the beginning when you started, I think this is one that we get just enough story. This is the story out of everything that is set up the best, and it's worthy of the two actors that are playing the two roles. Alan Rickman was an amazing actor, and of course Emma Thompson is second to probably only Meryl Streep. I get their relationship. I understand. I know that, Ken, you had said that the physical cheating is the most important here. I don't know if it is to her because of the question that she asks him at the school play. She asks him, is it love?
She asks him as one of the three, and he's in the middle.
But yeah, he's definitely in the middle. It's the last one that she has to ask that really hurts her the most to have to ask.
Right.
Because I think she can get over a lot of things, but the last one she can't get over.
And that's why they get back together. If he was in love, then it would have been over.
The scene of her in the bedroom and she's crying, there's a couple of scenes here in this movie that are just utterly heartbreaking. And that's one of them because you feel her pain. That is a testament to Emma Thompson, but you feel it.
She has to be strong for her kids.
Right. She has to get herself together. By getting herself together, she shows that she can compose herself. And then the look on Alan Rickman's face when he's presented with that is a look of
disgust. Oh my God.
Shame and disgust of himself. I completely agree with this idea that he didn't set out to cheat. He actively, throughout the first part of their story, exits every time she tries to make a move on him. And up until a certain point, you almost feel bad for him because you wonder, does he know or does he not know that she's coming on to him? And then he's really presented with it. His wife tells him, and she comes out and basically tells him at the Christmas party, it's all for you.
Right.
And pulls an Omen reference out of the clouds.
In a different reference, but yeah, yes.
I think it would have been interesting, though, this Mia character. She originally was supposed to be the girlfriend of Jamie at the beginning of the film, but they cut that out. I think that would have been much better if they would have left that in.
The actress does very well here. As a character, her character is almost as bad as Colin Firth's brother. She cares nothing for anybody but herself.
Oh, clearly.
She doesn't care that he has a family and it could ruin anything.
And she met his wife and everything at the party.
Right.
Who isn't to say that she didn't move on once she got her necklace and had
Of
had
course.
him cheat?
It's sick to say that you enjoyed this part, but
It's real life, though. It is real life.
It is. It's completely real life.
I'm not going to say it's relatable, but it is relatable to real life scenarios.
Right. I would say that Harry actually probably felt guilty after the sex was done.
Oh,
I bet you he got out of there really quickly and hanged his head down and hoping.
Well, that's why we don't
wouldn't
get
go
the
away.
scene of him putting the necklace on her.
Exactly.
This story is so well done. This is one of the most redeeming stories in this whole movie.
Well, then obviously for Ted,
amazing.
to keep it.
Oh, hands down.
Ken?
Most definitely a keep
Most
it.
definitely with me too. And Alan Rickman alone is a keep it.
And this shows just how good of a writer this director can be. He wrote this very well. All of these stories are written very well.
Really? All of them? All right, let's roll on.
Well, there's a couple coming up that I'll question at. But as far as like the dialogue and creating characters,
yes.
I think he's really good at creating characters.
The dialogue and the characters are good. The scenarios that the characters in, sometimes a little questionable. And let's roll into our next group here, Colin and the American Girls.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah. Here we go.
Oh,
Ted,
Lord have
I know
mercy.
this is your favorite. I'm going to kick it off with you.
This is so stupid. I cannot stand this character. I have an aversion to these brotastic characters. He's cringeworthy every time he's on screen. For whatever reason, this character is like nails on a chalkboard. And I can understand if somebody relates to it and understands it. This is not for me. And I get it. This is patronizing so much, too. The writer here uses every bad cliche that Brits think of Americans, and especially American women.
Cliches, stereotypes, everything. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Plays out, right?
Yes.
In his little fantasy world, it plays out. Everything else in this movie is realistic. This isn't even close. No way in hell you get on a plane to Milwaukee, first off. Okay, great. You're going from London Heathrow to Milwaukee, and you go to a bar in Milwaukee, and all the women are hot.
And the nearest bar.
The only
nearest bar. Not even a particular bar, just the nearest one.
Just the one. The first time I watched this, I was waiting for what I'm going to say next to happen. The only way I can accept anything that happens in this is if he wakes up and he's on the plane, and this is all
fantasy
been a
world.
This has all been a dream.
It's almost like
I get it.
Porn plot.
Almost. It's real close.
Yes. We just need a pizza delivery guy.
Brotastic. It's like Road Trip.
Yes.
And Road Trip was actually pretty funny in parts. There's nothing redeemable here. The only way I accept it is if he wakes up and he's on the plane.
Right.
I can't accept anything about this. I don't like the character.
And sitting next to like a stereotypical Packer fan. Some
exactly,
big,
right?
overweight guy with a big cheese head on. All right.
So. He was going to come back in Packers attire, but they couldn't get the licensing agreement.
They couldn't get licensing.
Nice. Thank you, Green Bay. Finally, good taste prevails. And even when they come back to the airport, that storyline is so over the top. You know,
he comes back with Shannon Elizabeth and Denise Richards, and this is no disparagement meant to any of the Milwaukee females. I'm sorry, there's hardly any that are ever going to look like Shannon Elizabeth and Denise Richards. It's completely unrealistic. It's a fantasy that should have remained a fantasy.
Here's how it could have worked. If he would have gone there and got rejected multiple times.
Or got the crap kicked out of him by the locals.
When he didn't wake up and be on the plane, that's what I was expecting to happen next. I kept getting shot down on every scenario I could come up with to try to make this work.
It kept amping up. It kept getting more unrealistic. He flies into Milwaukee. He goes to the nearest bar. They're hot women. They love guys with British accents. They can't afford separate beds. So they all sleep in one bed and they all are naked. Yeah, it's like, it just keeps amping up and you're like, really?
That's why I'm saying if you got him rejected multiple times and then you had one very pretty woman take pity on him, then I could accept that. Then his dreams come true. He finds a very beautiful woman that cares about him, but not because of some dream fantasy, just because people are good people sometimes.
I would accept that version as well.
All right, gentlemen, keep it or dump it. Ken?
Find a minefield and then dump it in a minefield somewhere.
I agree. This is horrible. This is the one part of the movie that makes absolutely no sense, and I think it's an embarrassment to the director and the movie itself. Dump it.
Dump, 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 dump.
Dump to the dump to the dump to the dump. All right, we're all in agreement there. Thank God. Good taste
Humpty
prevails.
Dumpty couldn't even make this put this back together again.
All right, and I know I love to say this about my movies, that even hardcore nudity couldn't save it, but let's go to John and Judy. Ken, kick us off.
Oh, really? We have to start with Ken on this?
We're starting with Ken. That's
Mr.
right.
Side Boob himself?
If there's a second place finisher for the part that should have been dumped, here's the part. There's nothing to this. The only thing I liked about this part was, okay, they get naked a lot.
Exactly.
That's not what I like about it, but it's their conversations that they have while they're being naked together.
Well, that traffic on the M4 was horrific this morning.
They're amusing, but to be honest with you, there's no reason to have this
really
part in this whole
isn't.
movie. There's not really any substance to this. Okay, so they're stand-ins. They have to go through the motions like nonstop. He has to massage her breast. I mean, how does he not get a hard-on at any time when she's pretending to blow him? I mean, it's just ridiculous. This part is just so god-awful.
That is worth it just for Ken saying that. That is...
Took the words right out of my mouth.
That's a keeper right there. Yeah.
It's crazy though. I mean,
Straight out of context.
At no time did she goes, "Excuse me." I mean, she's a very attractive woman. I mean, he must be a professional, I guess here, but I mean, still, it's so idiotic.
Yeah, it is. Ted, what do you think?
It's so bizarre, but I like these two. There's something about them. They're both charming. I love the fact that they're in this completely out of this world scenario, but they have the most mundane conversation. And there's something about that makes me like these two characters. This is like literally, and this is going to sound bad, but they're at a job that they're just going through the motions.
It's totally just going through the motions. Very mundane. And this is every day to them. Yeah.
And you feel a little bit happy for this guy. He says to her, he goes, "It's nice to finally find somebody that I can have a conversation with." And I really do feel for the guy. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cute. This guy found somebody, and then they find themselves in the next situation that's more awkward than the one that they just came out of. I love these two characters. They just don't fit in this movie, and I don't know what movie they fit in.
You know,
I want to spend more time with them because I like them.
That is perfectly said. You love the characters. They're sweet. Their banter is awesome, but the situation is just so out in left field. It's like, where did you even come up with this plot?
The only thing that I can think is that somewhere the director encountered a situation similar to this. Because if you would just put this on paper, you're like, there's no way that this would be less believable than Colin's story with the hot American girls.
No, I think this is more believable.
Yeah.
These characters are actually human. Colin, he's barely a human. These two characters, they don't have a lot of screen time. The time that they are on screen, they make you feel attached to them and that there's substance to these two characters.
Here's where I think this would have been more interesting. If he was late getting to the shoot and they had another body double come in and sit in his spot and he got jealous. That would have made at least a little bit something with this. Outside of the conversations that they have in the awkward positions, there's really nothing else. For people who are naked 80% of the movie, they are sweethearts. But like you said, there's just no place in this movie, and it just doesn't connect with anything else. I think the director almost is kind of thumbing his nose to Christmas in general, almost like an anti-Christmas a little bit.
Whoa, come on.
No, think about it. I mean, what Christmas thing...
This is a step too far.
I don't know if it is. I mean, first of all, this is the most nudity you're ever going to find in a Christmas movie, right?
The movie itself is just based on commercial Christmas. Let's just be honest. There's no really Christianity or Christmas. It's commercial Christmas.
It's love Christmas. It's supposed to be
Christmas.
Love during Christmas. And I think he's kind of thumbing his nose. The director even said that I wanted to have nudity in this movie. It was like one of the most important things to me. When I was a 15, 16-year-old boy, the most important thing for me was to see nudity in a film.
He said that in response to a question of
Why did they keep it in?
Why did they keep it in? I have no idea. You're taking one question out of an entire interview. And
I think the nudity really shocks the Americans more than it does the Brits in viewing this movie. For the Brits, they're like, whatever.
In America, or at least on America Cable, as Eric loves to watch movies on cable, they actually took this storyline and they wiped it out.
Wiped it off, I bet.
Yeah,
not even one iota. You only see them in like passing at an airport. They don't show their relationship
in the final
at all.
scene. That's understandable. You can't really put this on TV, but
no.
But by cutting it out, you're cutting out two of the most actually honest characters, and they're sweet. And
there are honestly certain movies that should not be on pay cable.
Yeah.
There are certain movies that you should, like watching Porky's or Porky's 2 on TBS. Should not happen. Don't even bother. All right, gentlemen, are we going to keep it or are we going to dump it? Ted?
This is a very reluctant drop it, but God, I love these two characters, and it's so hard to say that they should go.
It's because they have great British accents. You got to dump them, unfortunately.
There's something about these characters that are so sweet and they're adorable. I love them.
You just want to cuddle them and hug them.
Exactly, and at some point, it's not even nudity. I'm more interested in them as them talking to each other than I am about the situations that they find themselves in. I tune the rest of it out.
I have to say dump it.
Yeah, I mean, they're cute, they're lovable. I love British accents, so the banter between them is just great. But in this movie, like you said, you remove them from the movie, doesn't really affect the movie. It doesn't affect it all. Yeah. So, no, we're gone. Juliet, Peter, and Mark. Ted, kick it off.
This is the most frustrating story in the entire movie for me. Because when you're playing music and you play notes in an order to equal a chord, and you don't hit the last note of the chord, it feels undone. And it feels awkward. Like you want to finish the story. This story never gets finished. There's no payoff for this story. A lot of the stuff is completely out of the blue. That being said, there are parts of this that I do like. I love the fact that Andrew Lincoln's character, he does the surprise where he has the choir and then the singer all do the All You Need Is Love. I thought that
you would recognize them as guests at your wedding, but sure.
I love that part. I think that's great.
Unless all his friends are professional musicians, which maybe they are. It's cute.
I like that part. The rest, I don't get. You never get the feeling that Mark has any sort of feeling one way or another towards her. And then there's this big reveal that he videotaped her. It was kind of freaky, kind of.
Yeah.
Earlier in the film, when they're at the wedding, you have Sarah's character ask him if he's in love with the groom.
Right.
Because he's so focused on them dancing. So right there, you wonder who he's in love with. And at first, it seems like he's in love with his best friend.
That would have been more believable.
Exactly.
And the scene of him with the cue cards has been memed and TikToked.
Isn't that an
to death.
In-Excess video?
It could have been.
Yeah,
Isn't it Bob Dylan? Isn't it Bob Dylan?
Yeah.
Bob Dylan was the first to do it.
In-Excess, Bob Dylan, sure. And then as he's walking away, do we think after she kisses him, he walk away?
And that's where you're left with the undone chord. And there's no final note for these two. And it leaves such an awkward end. Mark,
at least give him a girlfriend at the end when they're at the airport. Have him with a girlfriend.
The way I thought to myself, so what? Is he going to do the same thing to Colin Firth's girlfriend, Aurelia? Is he going to fall in love with her then?
Especially after what she said when she showed up.
Exactly.
Right.
He crosses a line.
I don't like his character.
No.
I don't like him.
And that's because there's no payoff for this. He crosses a huge line.
Intentionally?
By doing what he
gets
did.
done intentionally.
Oh, yeah. I think
to his best friend.
That's why there's no payoff.
Horrible.
He doesn't get the girl.
But even if there is a payoff, it's his best friend.
I know that.
He should have got punched in the face at the very least. The fact that she doesn't say anything, I don't know. This is so frustrating for me because it's betrayal. It doesn't fit in this movie, in my opinion. And I know that people are probably going to freak out and be like, oh my God, because, it's so cute when he comes to the door with the cue cards and all that. I think it's a bunch of shit is what I think it is, because I think he's a punk. and he's an asshole for doing what he's doing.
And how about Peter just sitting up there for like 3 minutes? Those
Right.
are long carolers, aren't they?
Carolers. Yeah,
Carolers.
He turns up the TV and tells her
Yes,
to get rid of him with money. I mean, he doesn't sound like the best guy in the world, but what about her? She sits there and lets him do it. She doesn't say, hey, no, I'm married. Granted, this is Keira Knightley, and I think we should just keep her in the movie and get rid of the two dudes, because I love Keira Knightley. I mean, she's very beautiful. Best known for Pirates of the Caribbean. I agree with everything you say here, Ted, because it just doesn't make sense. I think if we would have reversed it and he was in love with his best friend and she found out, then that would have been at least a better situation and more plausible.
That makes infinitely more sense.
Are we all in agreement on this one? Is this a keep it or dump it?
Oh, this is dump.
I'm dump as well.
I'm dumping it, but if you can have Keira Knightley do like a cameo in it.
She could be one of the hot American chicks because she can do American accent.
Yeah, she could do American.
She could be Mia.
Oh, yeah, she could be Mia.
I don't know if she could pull off a Mia. I don't know if she could pull off a Mia.
You want like a black-haired with the horns and a devilish look. Yeah.
Something about this storyline that it rubbed me the wrong way.
I really didn't care about the characters at all. I was like,
I thought it would rub you the wrong way with a couple that were naked because they were rubbing against each other.
They were rubbing the right way.
I actively dislike these characters.
All right, so we're all in agreement. Dump it. Let's move on. This one's actually my second favorite, so I'll kick it off. David and Natalie, the Prime Minister. I like Hugh Grant. I think Hugh Grant is a great actor. I think Hugh Grant is like a rom-com king when it comes to rom-com British comedies. And this movie is no different. I think he makes an excellent prime minister. I love all his interactions with everyone, the staff, President Billy Bob Thornton, a.k.a. Bill Clinton. I think he's Clinton-esque. I actually think Billy Bob Thornton plays an asshole U.S. president in this pretty well. I love his interactions, obviously, with Natalie. We know he is infatuated with her from day one, and she's just adorable. Natalie is just a phenomenal character in this with all her little
swearing.
All her little and it's so cute when she swears. And the banter between them is just it's well written, natural. I mean, there's very little more I can say about it. I like the ending when he's going door to door and he starts caroling, and his bodyguard has got the big...
He has that deep voice and stuff.
He turns his head like, whoa, yes. And ironically enough, Natalie lives next to Mia. Everything gets tied together, obviously. But these are my two second favorite. I love these guys. I love the characters. I think their stage presence is phenomenal.
Why doesn't Mia hit on the Prime Minister? I mean, she hits on almost everybody else. Why doesn't she hit on the Prime Minister?
I know, right? Just give her time.
She likes those daddy figures,
I absolutely adore this storyline. And this is the one I thought we were going to have the disagreement with, Eric. I thought you had said that you didn't like Hugh Grant.
I love Hugh Grant.
Okay, because I love Hugh Grant.
I don't care what he does in bathroom stalls at truck stops. That's not my thing. But as an actor, I think he's incredible.
I think he is hilarious here.
Yes.
He's as lovable as he is in any movie he's been in. I think he's the perfect person to play the Prime Minister. If you had his story and then his sister's story, because his sister is the Emma Thompson character.
Right.
If you have those two stories along with Billy Mack, if you have those three stories, I think you have almost a perfect movie. Because you're exactly right. Natalie, she is one of the most lovable characters in the entire movie. She is amazing. Every time she's on screen, she steals every scene that she is. And she is amazingly beautiful. This is the only problem I have with this storyline, and that's that they keep fat shaming her. Holy crap. She is not fat whatsoever. And her dad calls her plumpy.
I know.
I'm like,
what is up with that?
What is going on? And like the Prime Minister's secretary just unloads on her.
Her thighs and her
hips
butt.
And her thighs, her butt. Yeah,
I'm like,
whoa.
Holy crap.
And she said that her boyfriend had dumped her because she was getting too fat.
Right.
And he keeps coming to her defense. And I'm like, you keep going. You stick up for her. You tell him that she's not plumpy.
And then at the end, he tells her that she's...
I got to rewatch that scene. I
hope he's joking because he stuck up for her.
Was he smiling, Ken, when he said it?
He smiles. I think it's a joke when she jumps into his arms at the airport. He goes, man, you're heavy. I think it was a
Okay.
joke because of
I'm
how
sure it
everybody else
was.
had treated
That's-
her.
I'm sure
Because-
it was.
That's one of the things that makes him so lovable. That and him going up and down the street. But he sticks up for her every time. And he always looks at the people that keep saying that she's plump. And he looks at them like they're from another planet.
Right.
And I love the looks that he gives her. I think that he's remarkable here.
I mean, if
and
they said
so
that,
is she.
are you talking
It's
about
perfect.
Tourette's girl or something like that? Then I could buy that because she doesn't know how to control her swearing.
I
but-
love that part though.
Which
She
is
gets
very
nervous.
common with British people.
She
So
gets
yeah.
flustered when
Right,
she meets him,
right.
and it's, oh shit!
right to the
It's
Prime
just-
Minister.
It's hilarious, and
It's like,
they're
at least
just
you didn't say
they're
the
love-
F word, and then she's like, you're right, and then she says the F word. But I agree with you immensely on this part. I love the storyline. I actually enjoy when Hugh Grant decides to dance. It's fun. It's enjoyable.
Mhm.
He's actually a really good dancer, actually. I was really surprised how he was able to pull that off.
They had to convince him to do the scene. He said that that's not how a prime minister would act, but they
But
convinced
that's what
him
we
to
like
do
about
it.
him, though, is he doesn't act like a normal prime minister.
And he stands up to the U.S. president, and
Yeah.
he's like pissed off.
He acts like a human
exactly.
being that has the job of a prime minister. It's basically Hugh Grant doing Hugh Grant movies. I mean,
Mhm.
let's put it this way. This could be the same character from Four Weddings and a Funeral that
Easily.
got the job. This could be
Easily.
the same guy from Notting Hill that got the
Right.
job. It's
Yeah.
the same personalities, but that's what we like about him. That's what we like in rom-coms is that he is the good guy. He is the
Right.
good guy. When we see a rom-com with him, we know we're going to like his character.
And one of the most underrated interactions that he has, you feel the pain when Emma Thompson says that she wants to see her big brother, and she's relieved that she gets to see her big brother because you know she's in pain. If those are the two stories that we have going forward for this movie, you get to see him be that person to her because you know by the way he's acting with Natalie that he will be that person for her and will be that rock.
And I would say that these two stories that you just mentioned, and if you add the Jamie story with a little bit more substance, a little bit more time given to that story, and you have three rock solid storylines, that makes for a much better movie than spreading it out as much as they did.
I think we can all agree we're keeping it, clearly.
Keeping
yes.
it, yeah.
Across
Hands
the
down.
board. All right, we're going to end it with Laura Linney's character, Sarah. Ken, what do you think?
I've got a mixed bag on this one.
Yeah.
I think she's a great actress. It's interesting that she's in love with Carl for a very long time. They asked her, how long have you worked here? And it's something like
Right.
2 years, 7 months. And
Yeah.
how long have you been in love with Carl? 2 years, 7 months. Yeah. For somebody who's in love with this guy and to let her brother's situation derail it, not only derail it, but basically make it crash and burn. I just have problems with it. I mean, we are left at the end of this movie with them just saying Merry Christmas to each other and then walking away. It's very sad. And maybe it's realistic, but I don't understand her total devotion to her brother. I know her parents had passed away and she's the caregiver. This is another one where time doesn't help this.
No,
this
she's
movie.
not the caregiver. That's the thing. He's in an institution.
Right.
I
but
think she
she's-
feels
she's
guilty about it.
Yeah.
Probably
Immensely
so,
guilty.
because her parents are gone too. She's the only one she's not the caregiver, but she's the one that whenever he can call somebody, he's going to
She
call her.
drops everything.
He's
She
all
drops
she-
everything.
she's all
Everything
he
in her
has.
life. No matter where she is or what she's doing, he takes precedent in her life. And it's
And she-
almost like it's controlling her life.
She's obsessed with that relationship with her brother because she wants to be there. Because if something bad happens, she's going to blame herself. She's going to say that whatever happened to him was because she wasn't there for him. It's bothersome because we don't have a true ending to that relationship. We don't know what happens to all three characters. But it appears that maybe she's going to just grow old and become an old maid.
Until he passes.
And then by that time, who knows how old and who passes first. It's unfortunate because she's such a great actress. I love how she gets excited when she brings him home and she's on that staircase and she's just jumping up and down. I buy that excitement from her. I really buy the way she shows her emotion on screen. It's just a depressing storyline that I just have a hard time with.
What do you think, Ted?
It's the only way I can describe this is just absolutely heartbreaking. And I'm not always one that has to have a happy ending for whatever movie I'm watching. But there is some heartbreak, but there are so many happy things in this movie because they make it look like, and this is a tribute to this actor, as he's walking out that final time and wishes her Merry Christmas, he pauses for a second. They look at each other like they want to say more. It tears my heart out because I feel for her.
She gave up there because before she would put on makeup and lipstick and stuff. At that point when he's leaving, she doesn't put anything on. with the
she's
blank look on her
defeated,
face.
essentially. I wish they would have showed him come back in and kiss her. And I don't say that very often because I usually try to have things more realistic in my movie, but it's so heartbreaking. And Laura Linney is an amazing actress. Like you said, Ken, when she does the happy dance on the stairs, you get pulled into this character and you feel something for this character. And just to have it ripped out of her hands is hard to take. Maybe a little bit too real life.
It really doesn't fit the Love Actually mold. It is kind of depressing, kind of brings you down a little bit.
But she does have the love for her brother.
Oh, she does. You're right.
So-
You're right. It's dedication and it's love. And yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of like a different type of love. That is a good point. I never really thought of it that way.
She's got to have a really understanding boss for the fact that if he calls her all the time and she's been there for almost 3 years.
It seems like Alan Rickman does
Yeah.
have that relationship with her. I mean, he brings her into the office and basically tells her that she needs to go after Carl. And when he's sitting on her desk and he's asking her if there's been any movement, he's wanting an update. Her phone rings and he goes, up, and your phone rings.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he walks away.
He knows. They know.
And that's one of those little things, too, which you're going to be surprised what I have to say, because having her in this story shows the humanity of Alan Rickman's character, because he could be the boss and be like, you're done. You're out of here. But he doesn't. He feels something for her, and he wants her to be good, and you shows that he's a really good guy, and he wants her to be happy.
It's a very good tie-in.
You'll be surprised what I have to say, but I'm going to say keep it. I love the interaction. Just to keep that character interaction with her and Alan Rickman. The other stuff's hard to take, and I think if a little more oxygen, maybe you can redeem the utter heartbreak out of there. But
I would say definitely a little bit more oxygen. It's tough. You made some good points in this one, some stuff I didn't think about with the brother, but I'm on the fence, but I would dump it. And it's hard for me to say that because it could really go either way, but if in the scheme of this movie, I think it's a dump it. How about you, Ken?
Unfortunately, I'm going to go with dump it. The only thing that could have possibly redeemed it for me is if they drew out the back and forth between the relationship. Like they tried harder, and then at the end, it just didn't work out. Then I would buy it, but they only tried once. To me, that wasn't enough for me to be totally invested in the relationship. So, but yes, dump it.
So in this movie, there are some great cameos. Obviously, Ted went through all the cameos, but I think the one that really stands out is Rowan Atkin's character, Rufus, the merchant salesman selling the jewelry. I think we should just briefly talk about his character. Ken, what do you think?
I love his character. I think he's Rowan Atkinson at his best, where he's lovable and frustrating at the same time. He's Mr. Bean with the voice, the way he gift wraps everything. And I know Ted was probably going to bring this up as well. Originally, it was thought that Rufus was going to be like an angel. I like to think of him as more of a Cupid type of character. So what he's doing there in that scene is he's trying to delay him buying that gift so he won't cheat on his wife is what I think is happening there. And then because we didn't see him again at the airport where he allows the boy to get past security to go after the girl, but he doesn't have a boarding pass. He's just there to kind of as a diversion. So he seems to be he seems to be some type of angel, Cupid type of character. And this is what I'm saying. If you had 3 or 4 stories and you linked him in all those stories and he kind of pushed it to a certain way to help the story move along for love to happen, I think you have a much better movie. And who doesn't want to see a little bit more of Rowan Atkinson in?
I love Rowan Atkinson. I hate Mr. Bean. I'll be honest with you. Mr. Bean annoys the hell out of me.
Thank you.
I know, but I love Rowan Atkinson's character in this, and I agree with you, Ken. He is kind of like a guardian angel or a Cupid. The one thing that's kind of funny you brought up with the scene, I forgot about that with the airport there. Talk about 2 years after 9/11. This is the worst security I've ever seen at Heathrow International Airport, letting a little kid just literally trick everything. And I know it's a rom-com, and you got to take it with a grain of salt, but I was like, boy, this kid can get through anything. I mean, there should be like a 3-hour line to get on these planes.
Originally, they had him doing some acrobatic type of thing, like he's like a kid gymnast and he's supposed to like fly over certain things. So they had to take it out because it was just too much CG.
So I like Rowan Atkinson's character in this. How about you, Ted?
I think he's in it just the perfect amount. I'm grateful that he's not Mr. Bean here.
Yeah.
That's British humor that I don't get. I'll take Monty Python and those guys over Rowan Atkinson any day of the week. Give me Peter Sellers. I'll take him over Rowan Atkinson any day. But here in this movie, he works. even though they tried to change his character from being an angel, I still think he kind of is, because of the two things that Ken says. Where we see him, it's like he's trying to prevent Alan Rickman's character from making a mistake that's going to impact his life. And then he allows the boy Sam to get through. He even gives like an acknowledgement to Liam Neeson.
Yeah, as he's walking away.
As he's walking
nod,
away.
a little winks.
I think it's perfect. He does exactly what he's supposed to do here. I read that they tried to eliminate that. That's still how I look at his character.
I think he's a keeper. He's perfect in it. There's no real backstory on him. I think the way
you don't need anything.
You don't. Yep. It's great. All right. Well, those are all of our plot scenes, if you will. Let's talk about the ending of this movie. Ties everything together, or does it not? Ted, we'll kick it off with you.
For the most part, I love how these stories come together in this movie. I cannot stand this final scene. All of a sudden, you have all of the major characters come through. I hate to say lazy, but it is. It's like we want to wrap these up, but we don't really have a way.
Haven't we noticed that rom-coms have a horrible way of doing endings? Yeah.
They have a hard time of sticking the landing.
Mm-hmm.
It sits ill with me. I think that how each one of those stories wrapped themselves up in themselves was perfectly fine. This didn't need to be added on to the end. I don't know. It seems weird. And you had mentioned it back when we talked about the Alan Rickman, Emma Thompson thing. It's an awkward interaction. And I know it's supposed to be awkward because she's recovering and getting over, but they don't have quite the same chemistry that they had back in the early part of the movie. And so it doesn't quite fit. And then, of course, you bring in Mark and Juliet, and of course, they're friends with Colin Firth's character and Aurelia. And it just doesn't make any sense.
It's forced.
Ridiculousness.
It's forced.
It's all forced.
And they're all coming back at the same time. And it's
right.
The Prime Minister, you didn't need to have that scene coming back.
His is the best. And I could understand his because he's famous. Why people would be all standing there.
But he would be on a private airplane.
Definitely.
He wouldn't go through the airport.
Yeah.
And maybe we do like it, but it's not needed. I don't need that. I don't need Colin Firth's character coming back. Maybe the Alan Rickman character and maybe the guy that comes back from the States. That thing should just be abolished altogether. But I don't think the scene at all is needed. I think when you end the movie like you did before the airport, I think you're good to go and you should just be done.
I'm not crazy about the ending either. It's very forced. But the one thing I think they tried to do, and unfortunately they failed, was they tried to tie the movie up in one giant circle as the beginning, when Hugh Grant is introducing all the random people at Heathrow and what love is. All the people, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends, all coming together, hugging and kissing. That's how they tried to wrap up the end of the movie, to kind of make it one big full circle. And it didn't quite land on its feet.
What it does is they try to manufacture the feeling that those real life people have.
Right.
When they're coming back. The beginning and after they've finished the acting part of the end sequence, I absolutely adore those scenes of the people coming back. I think that's an amazing way to end the movie. I thought it was a really ingenious way to start the movie. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. You can't manufacture real life emotion like that. It's so hard to do that. I love all of those sequences of the real life people. It's one of the best parts of the movie for me.
So I think we can agree that the ending definitely needs a little bit of help. All right, that's cool. We're all in agreement there. Let's wrap this up and talk about our reviews. I'll end it since technically it was my pick that the voters picked, that the tiebreaker was done by Ted. So let's kick it off with Ken.
This movie is a little frustrating for me because after we did all our keep it or drop it, I only think I had 2 keep it's. And if I'm only going to have 2 keep it's out of 9, I don't see how I can rate this as a favorable movie. However, the 2 that I kept, the Prime Minister and his sister's story, they're extremely good. They're really, really good. Mainly because of Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman's ability to act with as much of a story that they're given. They take the most of the time given and they are able to give us a great story. Based on those 2 storylines, I'm going to give it a C. I do think that the Jamie character, if we stretch that out a little bit more with his relationship and give it a little bit more time, as we said, then we probably could upgrade this movie. But the way it is right now, those two stories save it, along with Rowan Atkinson. It's a C.
Ted, how about you?
This is an interesting point for me because I said a lot of the stuff that I wanted to say here throughout the podcast. There are parts that really frustrate me. I think there's two of the stories that could just be completely thrown into the bin, to use a British turn of phrase, which is the Mark and Juliet, and then, of course, the Colin part. Other than that, I do like all of these characters, except for those. This movie, I never felt bored by it. I always had some emotion. And I think when you're watching a romantic movie or a love type movie, I think that that's ultimately what you're trying to get at, is some sort of, you're trying to induce emotion. It hits that really well. And I think there's a lot of really good writing here. There's some not so good writing, but for the most part, the characters, other than the ones that I don't like, I think are really well written. Characters that I would like to ultimately spend more time with if they were in their own movie. Because I did enjoy myself, I'm going to give it a B. It's a solid B. It'll be a movie that I'll probably pull out at Christmas again. I don't know if it's necessarily a regular rom-com type movie. It's more of a Christmas movie, but it's definitely a movie that'll be in my rotation now. Other than a couple of them that are kind of depressing, it makes me feel good and I like it.
This movie, for me, is one that I watch every year. I watch it around Christmas. So for me, it's kind of a Christmas movie. It's one of my favorites. It has been probably for the last 10, 12 years. Yeah, the movie's got some flaws, but overall, I'm entranced. I'm stuck with this movie. I love it. It's one of my favorite rom-com flicks. It's not perfect, especially as we've discussed this movie in some really good detail. I've kind of rethought a few things, but I still love the movie. I'll still watch it every year. It's not an A, but it's a solid B+, borderline A-. I'm going B+ on this one. All right. So, except for Ken, all pretty much on board. But even Ken with a C is not bad. I was expecting you to go a lot worse. So,
well, like I said, the two storylines that are there are really good. But the fact that you have the storyline with the American girls, it's so bad. I just don't know how
it almost drops you a letter grade.
It really does. If you took that out and maybe took one of the other storylines out, then I could probably be entering the B range.
Yeah.
I can't get over that. I can't get over the depressing story of
Sarah and her brother.
Yeah. It's too depressing for me. John and Judy's characters, there's just no place for them. Are they likable characters? Yeah, but do they belong in this movie? No. If I'm going to say 2 of the 9 plots are good and the other 7 we can do without, how can I grade it in the B or A range?
Fair enough. This is it. This is our 4th and final rom-com, right? We're done with the rom-coms. What's next on the horizon for us?
The Oscars are around the corner, so we have done a poll on our Facebook page. We took some Best Picture winners, and we nominated, and our next movie that we're going to do is Casablanca.
Casablanca, one of the greats of all time? Maybe? I guess we'll find out. All right, Casablanca. Ted, where can they find us on the web?
We can be found on Twitter at movie_marquee with 2 E's. And of course, on whatever platform you're listening to us, whether it be Anchor, Spotify, or Apple Podcast, give us a rating and review wherever you can rate and review us. Give us a 5-star rating. It helps us get seen out there and gets us to be able to maybe move on a chart or so and gets our name out there. And you never know what good things might come of that coming down the way. Stay tuned. You never know what's going to come up.
All right. Ken, what are they saying about us on Facebook?
And you are more than welcome to join us on our Facebook page. It's the Movie Marquee with 2 E's. And you just go ahead and submit a request to join, and we'll approve you. And then you can jump in the conversation. A couple of the things that we posted out there was Molly Ringwald from 16 Candles. Her mom forgot her birthday. So that was kind of funny because the story of 16 Candles is her family forgetting her birthday.
Did someone forget her career?
I think she forgot her career after she got
Ouch.
Actually, she chose a different route. So
that's true.
We also post about Jason Mewes from our Clerks episodes. He talks about how Kevin Smith was one of the reasons why his life was saved. So you want to check out that article. And of course, we had the voting for Best Picture. Which one did you want us to do as a podcast? And that's why we're doing Casablanca. And we want to say thank you to Justin Cooper, who also threw out the question, what's your favorite Ben Affleck movie? I put mine as Hollywoodland.
Mine was The Company Men.
I love The Town.
Okay.
Company Men and Argo, but I love The Company Men. Have you ever seen
I love
that?
him in Argo too.
Affleck's good guy, good actor.
My sister really loves The Accountant. She really likes that
that's
movie.
an incredible movie. All right, well, that's all the time we have here on the Movie Marquee. Thank you, and have a pleasant tomorrow.
See you at the movies.
See you next time at the Movie Marquee.